Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing my reading of 2021 and setting goals for 2022. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through my stats for my reading in 2021. So this will be a collation of all the stats that I usually go through in my monthly wrap-ups, with a bit of additional information as well that I don't usually include in those monthly wrap-ups, and kind of overview the whole year. Then I'm going to recap on my goals for 2021 and see how I did with them, and then I'm going to tell you what my goals for 2022 are. With all that said, let's get on with the stats. I read a total of 155 books in 2021, which is a lot for me actually. It's increased quite a lot from the previous year. So I read, I think it was 119 books in 2020. This was partly because I managed to do the 31 books in 31 days challenge in July, which, because of the nature of my course, I had a break over the summer last year, which I'm not going to get again, so it's unlikely that I will reach that many books again this year. But it's still really good to know that I have been able to do that at least once in my life, read over 150 books in a year. Confusing myself already. My to read start count at the beginning of 2021 for Goodreads was 597 books. This went up quite significantly, and we'll get onto why in a minute. By the end of the year, this had gone up to 675 books. So some of that was buying books for college, because I'm now doing research that requires me to read a lot of a specific genre of novels. You'll have heard me talk about it before if you watch my channel regularly, which means I need to buy them because they're not readily available from either the public library or the college library. So that accounts for a small proportion. But yeah, I have this year spent a lot of my book budget on buying cheap books from charity shops and just acquiring books that way. My ebooks to read starting count was at 65 books. I didn't actually measure that before this year, so at a certain point during the year I collated a list of all the ebooks that I had and worked out which ones I'd read and figured out which ones I'd had at the start of the year. At the end of the year, this had gone up to 126 books, and that's mainly from getting stuff from NetGalley, although I did get a few others, but I mainly only get ebooks when they're free. I think I maybe actually paid money for maybe 3 ebooks this year, so the rest are all stuff I've got from free from different places. My review to read start count was 9 books. I'd only just got NetGalley at the very end of 2020, so I didn't have very many books on there, and I had a couple of physical ARCs that had been sent to me by authors. So at the end of the year, this was on 47, and again, that's mainly from NetGalley. So my NetGalley start ratio was 0% because I'd literally only just got it at the beginning of 2021. And by the end of the year, this had gone up to 28%, which isn't too bad, but that's definitely something I'm going to be working on this year. Read the books and requesting less. So where the books came from, what I don't have on this is specifically a number of review books, which I'll probably add in for next year's spreadsheet. The books that I acquired, I bought 81 books in the year. I was given 41 books and I borrowed 47 books. I read 21 of the books that I bought, so I read 26% of the books that I bought in 2021, which isn't great really, because that is why they just end up stacking up on my TBRs. We'll come back to this when I do my goals later, but I want to be buying less books and reading more of the books that I buy. I only read 3 of the books that I was given, and that's led to another goal as well that I'm going to talk about a bit more later. So I only read 7% of the books that I was given, which isn't great really. I mean, I was given quite a few of them at Christmas, but even that doesn't account for that percentage being so bad. I read 20 of the books that I borrowed, which was 43%. So that's not too bad, but again, I want to be trying to borrow less books this year and read more of the books that I own. The books that I read, 69 of the books were books that I owned. That was either from my physical backlist or my digital backlist, or books that I had acquired during the year. 56 were books that I'd borrowed either from the library or from friends or family. 22 were review books either from NetGalley or from Story Origin, or some were direct from authors or publishers or from book tours. And then 8 books were rereads. The red stats include ebooks, which the acquired stats don't necessarily as well, which, because I've been reading a lot more ebooks this year, I need to figure out how to address that in the stats, because that is why the numbers don't quite add up sometimes. So let's go a bit deeper into the stats. So I read 155 books, which came to a total of 49,515 pages. So that gave me an average book length of 319 pages. So the shortest book that I read was a short story prequel called Killian's Dead by Josie Jeffrey. It's a prequel to the Seekers series, and that was 22 pages. And then the longest book that I read was Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. My English edition of that was an ebook, which was 1,839 pages. Of the books that I read, 137 of them were between 1 and 500 pages in length. 17 were between 500 and 1,000 pages, and one book was over 1,500 pages. And without going through all of the detail of the accounts, actually, let's just figure that out. How much did I earn? The total amount I earned for my book budget was £196, and I've literally just added that up and I didn't realise it was quite that much. So that does show roughly how much I've spent on books this year, because at the end of December I had £7.25 left in the book budget. So I have spent quite a lot of money on books, and that is not even including stuff that I bought for uni. According to my budget, my accounts page, I spent just under £193 on books. That's quite a lot. See, now I want to do more maths. Yeah, I should have really figured this out before I started filming. I've just done the maths again because there was something not adding up, and I'd added in 1 month twice. So the actual amount that I earned was £181. I've just double checked that, and that is correct now. I also had brought forward just under £20. So the total amount that I spent on books, according to my spreadsheet, was £192.93. As I mentioned, that didn't include several categories. That didn't include books I bought for college, books from subscription boxes, and books I bought for book club, but included everything else. On average, I earned just over £15 a month from my reading, from my book budget, so it's £15.08, and on average I spent £16.08. That's actually not too bad. I was more or less reading within my means, so that's all right. Okay, that was a lot of maths, and I confused myself a lot there. So hopefully Editing Kerry has been able to make some sense out of that. For the publication dates, 125 of the books were published in the 21st century, 22 were published in the 20th century, 7 were published in the 19th century, and 1 was published in the 16th century. Where the books came from: 35 of the books came from my physical backlist, 7 were from my digital backlist, 26 books were new that I either bought or was given within the year, 48 came from the library, 9 I borrowed from elsewhere, 22 were review books either from NetGalley or from elsewhere, and 8 were rereads. So for ratings, let's go from the bottom. So I DNF'd 6 books. I didn't give any books 1 star. I gave 2 books 2 stars, 24 books 3 stars, 87 books 4 stars, and 42 books 5 stars. I read 89 paperbacks, 21 hardbacks, 44 ebooks, and 1 audiobook. And then for genres, this is fun. So I read 2 anthologies which were kind of broader in their terms of anthology, so it could include multiple formats of essays, short stories, poetry, that sort of thing. 1 biography, 32 Christian non-fiction, 14 classics, 16 contemporaries, 5 dystopians, 14 fantasies, 1 fantasy romance, 1 gothic horror, 8 historical, 5 inspirational romance, 2 magical realism, 4 memoirs, 3 mysteries, 1 mystery romance, 12 general non-fiction, 1 play, 2 books of poetry, 15 science fiction, 1 science fantasy, 2 short story anthologies, 6 speculative fiction books, 1 thriller, and 6 urban fantasies. So therefore my most read genres, unsurprisingly really, were Christian non-fiction, because I have to read a lot of that for uni, science fiction, and actually the surprising one is contemporary. That was my next highest, so that is a surprise. I thought it was going to be fantasy. My top 3 in order were Christian non-fiction, contemporary, and then science fiction. That surprised me. I didn't realise I was reading that many contemporaries. Okay, so the age audience for the books, 9 books were for children, 27 were young adult, and 119 were adult. I read from a really wide range of publishers this year. I added so many publishers to my publisher list. It's amazing. It means I've discovered a lot of new independent publishers because I only put them on the list if they're indie. I have like all the big 5 imprints just listed under the main big 5. It worked out that 68 books were from big 5 publishers and 87 were from indie publishers, which is really good. That's well over half. So I'm really pleased with that. Author nationalities, I've read from a lot of different nationalities. Some of them are kind of subcategories. So I read quite a lot of authors that are either American plus another nationality or British plus another nationality. So that was the biggest chunk. Most of the authors I read were either American or some form of American nationality, or British or some form of British nationality. And then the next highest after that was French, which is not surprising really, considering I've been trying to read more books in French. For author ethnicities, so I was trying to increase the number of authors of colour that I was reading, and so at the end of the year I'd read 56 books from authors of colour, 92 books from white authors, and 7 books which were the anthologies that had multiple authors of different ethnic backgrounds. For author genders, 46 books were written by cisgendered men, 92 were cisgendered women, 8 books had multiple authors of different genders, 5 books were from non-binary or genderqueer authors, 2 books were by trans men, and 2 books were by trans women. I'm going to come back to the challenges when I do my stats review in a minute. So for my author diversity tracking, 63 of the books were by or featured an author from a marginalised ethnicity, an author of colour. 33 of the books were by or featured an author from the LGBTQIA+ community. 13 of the books were by or featured an author with a disability. 22 of the books were by or featured an author who had experienced mental illness. And 8 of the books were by or featured a neurodiverse author. So that's not too bad. Definitely was focusing on authors of colour this year, and I'm hoping to try and increase the other author diversity stats a little bit more as well, but it's really difficult to focus on all of these different goals at the same time, so we just have to kind of see how that goes, and I'm going to keep tracking it and seeing year on year how that looks. And then for character diversity, 71 of the books featured characters of colour, 51 featured LGBTQIA+ characters, 40 featured characters with a disability, 50 featured characters experiencing mental illness, and 29 featured characters with a neurodivergence. So that's actually pretty good. Quite happy with that. Okay, so that's all the charts, I think. I think I've covered everything in terms of stats, hopefully. So let's go back to my goals. I broke my goals down into 3 sections. I had book goals, diversity goals, and channel goals, and I've kept those same goal categories for this year. My first goal was to stick to my book budget, and I just about did. It was quite hairy through a lot of the year in that I was often in the red and trying to recoup, but as you'll have heard from my complicated maths, I did manage to end the year in credit in my book budget, so that's really good. And we'll talk a bit more about the new goal relating to that in a minute. I had the goal to get my TBR down and to have 50% of the books I read be from my physical TBR. As we've just heard from my stats, that really did not happen. That wasn't great. I had the goal of reading and reviewing 2 books per month. So on average, I read more than that, but I didn't manage to get all the reviews posted. So I think I reviewed everything on NetGalley, but I've still got some reviews that I've written that I haven't filmed yet, and one that I filmed and haven't edited yet. So yeah, we're going to be looking at that for a goal for this year. I had a list of 15 books that were the oldest on my TBR, and the goal was to read everything on that list. I didn't. I read 2 of them, and I DNF'd 2 of them. So that could have been better. I carried on with my Read Around the World challenge, and my goal every year is to read at least a book a month from that. I managed 10 books again last year, which is fairly standard. That's usually the amount I manage. It is getting a bit harder now. I'm trying to get to more obscure countries, but we'll see how that goes. I had the goal of reading one book per month, either that was translated or that was written in a foreign language. And I exceeded that. So I read 12 translated books and 7 books that I think were all in French. But that's really good. I'm really happy with that. And then I had a goal to complete 10 series, and I had a list of 10 series that I wanted to complete. I didn't complete all of those series on the list, but I did complete 11 series in total. So I'm quite happy with that. And I found that focusing that list down helped me to actually progress with some series. So that was all of my reading goals. For diversity goals, my goal was to maintain between 40 and 50% of the books I was reading to be from independent publishers or self-published. And I actually exceeded that. I read 56% of books from independent publishers, so I'm really happy with that. I wanted to read more trans and non-binary authors. In 2020, I read 3 books from trans and non-binary authors. In 2021, I read 9. So that's a lot better. That's 3 times as many. So I'm pretty happy with that. Both of those years, some of the anthologies I read included trans or non-binary authors, but for the main author, that had definitely improved. And then for author ethnicities, I was aiming for over 40% being authors of colour, and I got to 41%. That did include anthologies that featured authors of colour. My channel goals, I was aiming to keep tracking my stats to help me diversify my reading, and I did that. I was not planning to have any sort of upload schedule, and I did that. I was aiming to caption every video before publishing it, and I've still been doing that. I was hoping to start a book club based on a book bucket list poster that I've been given. I didn't manage to start that. It's not looking likely that that's going to happen anytime soon, but we'll see. I aim to launch another readathon, and I did that. That was the ebook eradicator that happened in July, and I'm hoping to run that again this year. I was aiming to watch and comment more regularly on other people's booktube videos, and that was a bit patchy. But I have got better at commenting on more videos that I watch. Just haven't necessarily been able to watch consistently this year, so that's maybe something to work on again. Okay, so my 2022 goals, going back to those same categories, my book goals. My first goal is to continue using my book budget to try and help me keep some sort of limit on my book buying. So I want to buy less books secondhand, because a lot of the books I bought this year were from charity shops and secondhand books. I had a few pre-orders, but other than that, there were a lot of times that I was like, oh, I really want to buy such and such a book to carry on a series, but then I didn't have the money in my book budget. And then rather than waiting until I had money in my book budget and buying the books I wanted, I would end up going into charity shops and buying random books. And so I don't want to do that anymore. I actually want to have a goal book each month that I'm trying to earn the money to buy. That's how I'm going to try and cut back on how much I'm adding to my TBR, because I'll be spending more on books that I really want, and then hopefully also that will help me to read the books when I buy them, because I'll be buying books that I specifically want to read rather than just adding endless books to my TBR. So my next goal is the one that is carried over from last year, is to get my TBR down. It's got really out of hand this year. I'm aiming for 50% of my books to be from my backlist. That's either physical or digital backlist. I don't mind, I'm not fussy, to try and get through some of what's on my TBR. I would love to get my physical TBR back below 600. Whether that is actually possible or not, I don't know, but I'm going to try. I'd like ideally to get my digital TBR below 100, which is more achievable if I can keep up with reviewing stuff from my NetGalley backlist. I've created a number of mini TBR lists to help me focus on achieving this goal of getting my backlist books down, and I'm going to do another video. Hopefully I'm going to film it today, I don't know when you'll see it, which is going to be my TBR takedown, and it's going to go into more detail about all of these goals to help me get my backlist down. And then I'm going to do individual videos for each of these TBR lists to hold myself accountable to my goals. One of those will be books that have been given to me, because I feel really bad that people keep giving me books and then I don't read them. And particularly this year, to only read 3 of the 40 odd books that I was given is really not good. So we're gonna try and focus on that a bit more particularly. So look out for some of those TBR related videos coming soon on this channel. For NetGalley, I want to improve my ratio. I'm hoping to get that over 50% this year. So that is mainly through reading the books, but also will help me try and review them. So I'm still aiming for 2 review books per month, and my goal is to work through my NetGalley backlist before I request too many more. Read Around the World, I'm still aiming for 12 books, and I want to, as I completed 11 series last year, I want to complete 12 series this year, and one of those TBR lists again is going to be series I want to finish. Another one will also be the oldest on my TBR again, but it'll be mixed up a little bit, so look out for those coming soon. Okay, for diversity goals, again I'm focusing on increasing the percentage of authors of colour I read this year. So this year I want to get that over 40%, not including anthologies, because I realised there was one anthology I read that was entirely black authors, but other than that the majority of them were predominantly white authors with a few authors of colour included. So to count those as books being by authors of colour doesn't really, it's not in most cases. Yeah, so my goal is to have over 40% of the books where the sole author is an author of colour. For author genders, I want to try and increase the number of trans and non-binary authors I'm reading again, just to keep trying to diversify my reading in that way. And for the other diversity markers, I do want to try and improve on each category if I can, and amongst all the other stuff I'm trying to read. It's difficult because a lot of my backlist is not diverse, because it's not something I was aware of when I was acquiring a lot of these books, so we'll see how it goes. My channel goals, I want to post reviews more consistently, so for books that I have for review that haven't come out yet, I want to try and read and review them before their release date, and then I want to try and work through my backlist of reviews, as I've already said, but also try and get those reviews written and posted both on NetGalley and on this channel quite soon after I've read them, rather than have them hanging around for ages, because I've got some books that I read in the summer. I've reviewed them on NetGalley, but I haven't filmed the reviews for them yet, and it's not good, because I want to be promoting these books that I enjoyed when I read them. I want to try and work on watching and commenting more consistently on other people's videos again, like when I'm doing housework and that sort of thing. I can build in more time for watching booktube, I just haven't really had the capacity to do that very much, so we're going to try and work on that. And then I want to definitely run the ebook Eradicator again, and hopefully the Christmas readathon as well. It's potentially the last year I'll be able to do the Christmas readathon, because when I start a new job, which will be in 18 months, when I finish my course, I'll have to work quite a lot around Christmas. Potentially, yes, this could be the last year that I can do the Christmas readathon. It depends a little bit on what my family is doing, but we're going to try and run both those readathons again this year. So hopefully you've enjoyed watching me recap my stats for 2021 and set my goals for 2022. I'd love to hear how you got on with some of your goals for 2021 and what you're planning for your goals in 2022. So have a chat to me down in the comments about any of that sort of thing. Or if you just want to let me know that you've been here and been watching, leave me a medal or trophy emoji, because I've achieved quite well on most of my goals. There were a couple that I really failed on, but I did pretty well on a lot of them. So you can leave me some kind of trophy or reward emoji in the comments just to let me know that you've been here. You can also like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me. And you can also follow me on social media. All that information is listed for you in the description box below. But that's it for today. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.